I got to tell you, I laugh because I get so encouraged. I get to travel around the country and meet people that I think of as instant friends and heroes. And last night, meeting Pastor Mark and Christy, my wife and I just immediately know God has called these people for such a time as this. And if you go to this church, I hope you understand this is not normal. Do you understand that? Like, you're blessed here. There's a lot of churches you could be in that, I don't know why you'd be there, but there are a lot of people in churches that they don't have the life and the fire, and so I feel very honored to be here. And when people say things like, I don't know, we'll see if we can get Eric Metaxas, yeah, don't worry, I think you could probably get him. I think I might be here now, I don't know. How many of you are here now? I'm just curious, would you raise your hand? So a lot of you are here. Even though, man, you really made a big effort getting to the early 11 o'clock service, I just want to say congratulations. Wow. I know it's too early for me to joke. I apologize. The 8:30 service was livelier. That's the worst insult I could ever say to an 11 o'clock service. All right. I got so much I want to share, and I just want to say, first of all, seriously, thank you for letting me be here. This is a privilege for me. This is an honor for me. And whatever the Lord has to say to you through me, just recognize it's the Lord and it ain't me, okay? Because I know me, and my wife also knows me. She's right here. She'll vouch for me. This is the Lord wants to speak through all of us, right? And so whatever assignment the Lord has given me to speak or whatever, that's the Lord's idea. He didn't just make you. He invented you. You understand? Like, I can make cookies, but I didn't invent the idea of cookies. The Lord invented each of us. He's given each of us an assignment that no one in the universe ever can fulfill but you. That's God. It's amazing. And so it's kind of funny. I look back on my life, and you always hear people say this who've walked with God, that in retrospect you see the pattern, you see what God was doing, but you don't see it at the time. It's hard for us to see things at the time. That's why you need faith. You're like, Lord, I don't get why you're taking me through this. Through this trial, through this difficulty. I don't get this, I don't get that, but you don't need to get it. The Lord says, I'm with you. Look to me in the midst of your circumstances, and I will make something beautiful of whatever you're going through if you give it to me. So that's why my favorite scripture is, be anxious for nothing, but in all things by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, make your requests to the Lord. In other words, whatever would prompt you to anxiety, you say, okay, Jesus, I need your help. I give this to you. I quoted in the first service that where Jesus says, in this world you will have tribulation. He's telling you that's normal in this world. But he says, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. And so the Lord has appointed each of us to walk with him through whatever he has allowed us to go through for his purposes. And, I look my life, I'm not going to talk about my testimony today, but the Lord, I wrote a book, I guess they have the book here, it's called Fish Out of Water. And it tells the story of how the Lord wove things together in my life that I didn't understand at the time to bring me to himself. And that he spoke to me in a dream in 1988. And you can't take a lot of credit for coming to faith at all, right? Because it's all God. But when you're unconscious and you're dreaming, you can't say, I made a decision for Christ. I was unconscious. Have any of you ever been unconscious? Be honest. How many of you are unconscious right now? Raise your hands. I'm curious. It's a handful. I know. You think I don't know. But the Lord spoke to me in a dream in a way that completely blew my mind and completely changed me instantly. It was like it was like going to sleep single and waking up married. It was like another world. And it's kind of funny. I was... I put this on Twitter and I put this on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, there's a 11-minute video where I tell the story to some of you heard of Jordan Peterson. He asked me, how did you come to faith? How did you come to? But the way he put it in his Canadian way, he said, "So, hey, what made you switch your tune?" And I literally laughed out loud. I was like, "What? What made me switch my tune? Hoser?" I really laughed. But then I told him the story of my dream. So if you go to Instagram, my Instagram, just my name, it's an amazing story. But it changed me overnight, and then you say, okay, Lord, now what? Now, Lord, what do you have for me, right? And that's what we all need to be asking the Lord every day. Lord, what do you have for me today? You have a purpose for me. I don't need to know the details. Just show me what you need me to do today. What do you have for me? And the Lord took me on this strange journey. And part of that journey, which I didn't understand at the time, was writing a series of biographies. Now, some of you might know I wrote a biography in 2010, came out in 2010, about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. How many of you are familiar with the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer? I'm just curious. Anybody here? Okay, if you're not familiar with that, you might not be saved. I'm not judging you. No, actually, the reason this is actually amazing. I was not aware of the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And most people, why would you be, right? But the summer that I was led to the Lord, the summer I had that dream, this friend, Ed Tuttle, the man who really led me to the Lord and was talking to me about Jesus during the season, he said to me, hey, Eric, have you ever heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer? I said, no. Who's Dietrich Bonhoeffer? And he said, well, he's a German pastor who in the 1930s, because of his faith in Jesus, was speaking out against the Nazis in Germany because of his faith in Jesus. I thought, what? That is like courage. That's amazing. And he said, because of his faith in Jesus, he was speaking out for the Jews in Germany in the 1930s. And I remember thinking, because I wasn't quite a believer, and I was thinking, wow, that kind of Christianity, I could be interested in that kind of Christianity. That's an amazing story. So the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer that I heard back then, I'd never heard about it. And then at some point, I wrote a biography of William Wilberforce. He's the man who led the battle against the slave trade in the British Empire, right? Because if you believe in Jesus, you know racism is wrong and slavery is wrong. If you don't believe in Jesus, tell me why you think those things are wrong. I got bad news for the atheists. They have no idea why anything is right or wrong. They don't even believe in right or wrong, but they pretend like they do. Like, I'm a good person. Okay, what's good? Like, why do you even, they have no idea. And they're basically cannibalizing, Christian values for their own purposes. But William Wilberforce was somebody I wrote a biography about, because some of you maybe saw the film Amazing Grace, but his story is amazing. He comes to faith and knows instantly God has called him in politics, not to leave politics, to use politics for God's purposes, right? And so he doesn't make an idol of politics, but he leads the battle against the slave trade in the British Empire because of his Christian faith. And so I wrote that story. It came out as a book. I mentioned Amazing Grace. And then people kept saying, who are you going to write about next? And I kind of thought, you know what? Nobody's really told a story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer in a readable book. Now, that's an insult to all the people who wrote books about Bonhoeffer besides me. But I'm here to tell you, not all books are that readable. Have you ever noticed that? You pick up a book, it seems exciting, and it's like, this is tough. And I remember thinking, this guy is such an off-the-charts hero of the Christian faith. Somebody needs to tell his story in a way that does him justice, So I wrote that book. It came out in 2010. And it really struck a nerve that a lot of people were excited about it. And I didn't see that coming, to be honest. It was a real trial writing that book. It was a spiritual trial for me. I won't get into that. But so when that book came out, a lot of people got excited about the story of this man who, because of his faith in Jesus, spoke out for the Jews and spoke against the Nazis. What I didn't know while I was writing that book was that it would, in a sense, break open my whole career and kind of give me a career. I was just trying to, pay the bills and do something that I believed in. So this is, okay, I'm going to write a book about Bonhoeffer. But the Lord used that. It sold like 1 million copies, literally, and was translated into 20 languages. And it will soon be translated back into English, so we can all read it again. Yeah. All right. If you didn't laugh at that, you need a cup of coffee, because that was the dumbest joke I hope I will ever say. But so seriously, it struck a nerve. But what I didn't realize at the time that I was writing it was that God was giving us the story of Bonhoeffer to wake up the American church for what we are going through today. And what I mean by that is that the story of Bonhoeffer ultimately is a story about a man who saw the evil happening in Germany in the 1930s as the Nazis were rising, and he knew that it was the job of the church to speak against it. And he tried to wake up the church. It's kind of like a prophetic voice, right? You're trying to get the people of God to be the people of God. Like, you're asleep. You got to wake up. God has assigned this to you, church. And a lot of the German pastors and German leaders, Christian leaders, said, you know what? We're going to pass on that. We just want to have our nice church services. We're not interested in being self-sacrificial. We're not interested in doing anything dramatic. Oh, we don't want to be political. Oh, no. We don't want to be political. We'll just let the Nazis murder millions of Jews because we don't want to be political. Now, to be fair, they didn't see that coming. But the point is, where did the church ever get the idea that we're not supposed to be political? We're not supposed to make an idol of politics. But we're supposed to be everything. We're supposed to do everything. We're supposed to get involved in everything for God's purposes. And Bonhoeffer saw that the only institution in Germany that could stand against the Nazis was the church. And he knew that the church is the conscience of the state. It is the job of the church. God has assigned to the church to be the conscience of the state, whether it's the United States of America or Germany. The church is God's people in the midst of that situation, who are supposed to have no fear of speaking the truth, of going up against the giants. And so Bonhoeffer tried to wake the church up and to say, you're the only institution that could stand against this. And by the way, God has called you to stand against this evil. And if you don't stand against this evil, it's over. Now, we all know what happened. The church did not stand. The church did not speak out. And we don't know who said it, is often attributed to Bonhoeffer, but the famous phrase, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God will not hold us guiltless. So when we, the church, are silent in the face of evil, we kind of think we're carving out a third way, right? You got these people on this side and these people on this side. We're just going to be in the middle. We're just going to be nice Christians. Well, the Lord hasn't given us that option. If you sit on the fence when God wants you in the battle, if you're sitting on the fence, the devil owns that fence. You're fooling yourself only into thinking that you're sitting it out, that you're neutral. You say, I don't want to vote. I don't want to get involved. I just want to sit here. I just want to have a nice church. I just want to have a nice quiet time with my cup of coffee. That's not God's church. That's the devil's church. The devil wants to keep you silent, unactivated. God calls us to take our faith, if you have faith, into everything. Not just into politics, into everything you can think of. God calls us to bring it into the education system, into the media, into the world of medicine, into the world of journalism. If Christians would take their faith into all those places, you'd be living in a different world today. And the Lord has allowed things to get as bad as they are now for his purposes, to wake up the American church, if we can be awakened. Now, if you're in this church, I think you're probably already awakened. But there are tons and tons of churches that said, we want to take a pass. Now, the reason I wrote my new book, Letter to the American Church, is because the parallels of what we're going through in the American church today to what happened to the German church in Germany in the 30s as the Nazis were rising could not be more dramatic. Now, I wish I were exaggerating. I wish I were wrong. I really do. But I know that I'm not. I know that the exact same excuses Christian leaders gave and German pastors gave for not getting involved, like Bonhoeffer, were the exact same excuses being given today by many Christian pastors. They say, we don't want to be divisive. We don't want to be political. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Who told you that you shouldn't be political? Now, if you're preaching politics from the pulpit 24/7, that's not good. Okay, I get that. But you're not going to comment on the evil of the day because somebody says that's being political? If slavery was on the ballot, okay, if Abraham Lincoln is running, would you say, well, I can't tell people to vote for Lincoln. I can't take a position on slavery. I just want to preach the gospel. What kind of dead gospel are you preaching if you don't speak out against slavery? But can I tell you, there were tons and tons of American pastors who would not speak on the issue of slavery. And what religious what satanic religious excuse, what pharisaical excuse would they give? They say, well, we don't want to be divisive. We have people in our congregation, who they're on both sides of this issue. We don't want to be divisive. It is your job, pastor. It is your job, Christian, to speak God's truth. And you let the Lord worry about who is triggered and divided. You let the Lord worry about that. Your job is to speak God's truth. And when somebody tells you, well, you're being political, you just say, well, I guess that just means you want me to shut up because you don't care about slavery. Well, God cares about it, and he's called me to speak about it. And so people say, well, you're being political. It's like, well, you call it whatever you want to call it. But the Lord calls me to speak his truth. And that happened in every season. It happened in Germany. The pastors in Germany said, we don't want to be political. Well, God was calling them to be political. He was calling them to speak out against the Nazis, whether it's political, whether it's moral, the point is, these are just labels. God calls us to speak the truth, and they say, well, we don't want to do that. We just want to preach the gospel. There's a chapter in the book Letter to the American Church. It's called The Idol of Evangelism. In other words, we all know evangelism is a good thing, but you can make an idol of the best thing and replace God. Because what if God calls you not just to preach the gospel, but to speak truth? By the way, Jesus didn't just preach the gospel. He spoke truth. He said, if you cause one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for you that a millstone be hung around your neck and you be thrown into the heart of the sea. Oh, Jesus is too nice to say a thing like that, except it's in my Bible. So, Christian leaders think they're holier than Jesus. They think they're nicer and more gracious than Jesus. And they're trying to gaslight everybody and saying, well, we wouldn't say a thing like that. We wouldn't talk against transgender. We wouldn't talk about the sexualization. We don't want to be political. Well, the only one you're disappointing is God, because he has called you to speak his truth, his uncomfortable truth, into the world because you claim to believe in him. And if you claim to believe in him, you claim to believe he defeated death on the cross. That's not a metaphor. He defeated death on the cross. So you shouldn't even fear death, much less fearing being canceled or losing your job or losing a friendship. You're supposed to do what God called you to do because you say you believe he defeated death on the cross and rose from the dead. And I really think we need, this is like back to school weekend, right? We all need to go back to school and be reminded of what we say we believe. We say we believe he defeated death on the cross. Now, if you actually believe that, and by the way, if you don't believe that, you're probably going to hell. So if you say you believe that, you need to actually live like you believe that. And the Lord is calling us to live like we believe that, because he's saying if you're not living like you believe it, you don't believe it. And people say, but I'm saved by faith. Like, yeah, you're saved by faith. And the scripture says faith without works is dead. So you can't fool God with your words or with your thoughts. God sees your life, and he sees what you believe by how you live, and by how you speak, and by when you speak, and to whom you speak. And he sees what you believe or don't believe when you don't speak. And God is calling his church to recover a full faith where we actually live out our faith. And he wants us to know that if you aren't living out your faith, you do not have faith. So where did the church ever get the idea that faith is just an intellectual thing? I say I believe in this and this and this and this. Who are you think you're fooling? You're not fooling the devil. The devil sees exactly what's going on, and he's thrilled with you if that's your faith, because you have no faith. And this is, to me, what happened to the German church in the 30s. They got so pumped up on the idea of faith, because I wrote a biography of Martin Luther, and you can see how we kind of go back and forth, right? Like at the height of the corrupt church in the high medieval era, you could see how somebody like Luther is raised up to say, you're not saved by your works, you're saved by faith. Correct. Because there's a lot of people who actually believed I can get saved by doing this and not doing this, and it's basically dead religion, right? Moral performance. And they needed to be told 500 years ago, excuse me, that's not how you get saved. You get saved by believing in the one who was perfect and who defeated death on the cross and who rose from the grave. If you believe in him, it's accounted to you as righteousness. It's accounted to you as salvation if you believe in Jesus. But that idea, every good idea can go wrong, right? And so over the centuries, 400 years later, you get to the time of Bonhoeffer, and Bonhoeffer said the Lutheran Church in Germany has gotten so stoked up on this idea of faith, 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 and grace, 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 that they forgot it has to be real faith. It can't just be like, well, I believe this stuff, I'm saved. It's like, no. If you actually believe it, you have to live it. And if you don't live it, the Lord knows you don't believe it. And so the book, it's the shortest book I ever wrote, it's called Letter to the American Church. I talk about this, but I was going to title the book Faith Without Works is Dead. Because I said, just as the German church got lulled into this idea that I don't need to do anything, it's all grace, it's all faith, he tried to wake them up to that. And I see the American church is in a very similar position, where you have many people say, like, it's just about faith. I just need to believe. I go to church, I tithe, maybe. I don't really need to do anything. Folks, that's not biblical. And if you have a view that is not biblical, you need to understand it is from the pit of hell. It's not like there's biblical and then slightly less biblical. If it's not biblical, it's the devil's idea of Christian faith. The devil would be very happy for people to fill churches and to do nothing. And to fill churches and to not live out their faith when they leave the church on Sunday morning. It is God's idea that you take your faith, if it is real, into every sphere and that you speak boldly. So Bonhoeffer saw this happening in Germany and was trying to wake up the German church and say, church, God has called you now to live your faith. And if you live out your faith now, we can defeat the satanic evil of the Nazis. And if you don't know the story of the Nazis, trust me when I tell you, it was satanic evil, clearly. But of course, nobody who is working with satanic evil advertises as satanic evil. They talk a good game. They'll mention God if they have to. But if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you discern they are working for the devil. And they're deceiving millions of people. And we who are the church need to speak up. So the German church did not get that memo. The German church, when Bonhoeffer would try to wake them up and say, you've got to stand, church. You've got to get political. You've got to get whatever word you want to call it. You need to speak against these evils. They said, well, no, we don't want to be divisive. We don't want to be political. Romans 13. They love quoting Romans 13, like that's the whole Bible. Romans 13 is, I'm not going to get into it, but it's the context of the first century in the Roman Empire. So it's not like open and shut, like, it says we're supposed to obey the governing authorities. That applies to us today. It didn't apply to, have you read the book of Esther? Mordecai didn't say, like, we got to obey the governing authorities, so I don't want to go up against Haman, and I better just, do whatever they tell me to do. He said, no, and if you kill me, you kill me. That's centuries before Jesus. So the faith of people who walk with God is that I will obey God rather than man, and I need to have discernment. I can't just hide behind the fig leaf of Romans 13. But that's what the German leaders were doing. They're saying, we don't want any trouble. We don't want any trouble. We just think if we kind of play church, they'll leave us alone. We don't want to get canceled. Now, they wouldn't use that term, but it was the same thing. It's like, let the other guy get canceled. Let those hotheads get canceled. We just want to be unpolitical and undivisive, and we're not going to take any stands, and we don't want to talk about any of this stuff. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you, God is not fooled. He expects us to speak the truth. Even if you get it wrong, he sees your heart. You don't have to get everything right, but the point is to fear speaking because it might rub somebody the wrong way, or you could lose your job or this or that. You've got to trust God. We're living in a time right now no different than the Germans were living in the 1930s. Now, if they knew at the time that their silence in the face of evil would open the door to hell, I think many of them would not have been silent. I think many of them would have spoken out. But they were deceived. And even though Bonhoeffer prophetically tried to wake them up, they had all these excuses. And by the time they saw the rise of evil, it was too late. And it's my contention in this book, Letter to the American Church, that we are there now in America. And we are facing a host of evil on every front. I mean, wherever you want to look. I mean, where do you want to start? With the crazy, with the evil, the transgender loony. I mean, it's like the lunacy of the transgender movement. You don't need to be a born-again believer to know that's crazy. Most people in America understand that's nuts. A woman can become a man, and a man can become a woman. And by the way, why would any man want to become a woman? I mean, imagine being so broken. This is where our hearts break for these people. Imagine being so broken that you want to be the other sex and you're willing to go through whatever that is. That's heartbreaking. And I don't know if it's mental illness or if it's demonic, or we don't know what it is, but the point is we know it's not good and healthy and beautiful and true, and we know it's not God's will. So why would I want to affirm somebody in their madness? And you know what? In this country, we're so nice, we're nice to a fault, that we would say, well, if somebody wants to do that, we'll let them do that. But then when they start preaching that satanic madness to your kids, if you don't step up now, you are absolutely part of the problem. If you do not speak against this now, God is looking at you and saying, why aren't you speaking of this? Oh, because you fear man more than you fear me. Well, that's not very wise. That's not very wise. And I will judge you for that. And I'm telling you, I will judge you for that. And I'm telling you, Christian, I died for you. I expect you to live like you believe I died for you. And so everywhere we look, we see this madness in American culture. So it's very easy for us to judge the German church and say, they should have spoken up. Yeah, I would have spoken up. I would have been right there with them speaking up. You know, people who've read my Bonhoeffer book think, you're cheering them on. Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of good people missed it at that time. Just like good people are missing it today. And the question is, will enough of us be able to reach enough of those who are missing it to wake them up? And I believe Romans 8:28, where it says, all things work together for good for those that love the Lord and called according to his purposes. All things, this crazy stuff that is happening to us, the Lord is allowing it for his purposes to wake up those who are still sleeping. And he's saying, how crazy does it need to get? Now they're asking your little children, what gender are you? If that doesn't wake you up, you're dead. When people start talking about crazy stuff like critical race theory, right? Tell me how critical race theory is Marxism. Marxism is atheism, okay? If you're an atheist, you don't believe in God, you don't even know why racism is wrong. You don't even believe that racism is wrong. You're just making it up as you go along. Racism is wrong. We know why it's wrong because we're Christians. We say the Bible says that God loves everyone equally. We're all created equally in his image. All the people who led the abolitionist movement, all the people in the civil rights era, they had a Christian worldview. That's why they believed what they believed. If you're an atheist, tell me why you even believe racism is wrong. And guess what? You don't know why you believe it. You believe it because your friend told you to believe it. But we know that it's wrong. So when people talk about critical race theory and critical theory, these are corrosive ideologies designed to destroy culture, designed to destroy families. All of these ideologies, whether it's transgender ideology or whether it's the critical race theory or critical theory in general, all of these things ultimately are at war with God. They're at war with God, and they're at war with God's people and God's purposes, and they don't care, just like a demon doesn't care. They'll say anything. They don't have a problem with lying or contradicting themselves. They'll say anything. And a lot of times they can get away with it because of a lot of people and a lot of Christians who are unwilling to call them on what they're saying and willing to say, like, that's wrong, that's corrupt, that is harming our children, that is harming our culture, that violates my religious liberty. I'm not going to go along with that because I'm a Christian in America. People died so that we could have liberty, so that we could have religious liberty. I'm not going to go along with that. But a lot of Christians are so nice, quote unquote nice, that they're just willing to go along. They don't want to be divisive. The Lord didn't call you not to be divisive. The Lord didn't call you to be divisive either. He called you simply to do what he asked you to do and to speak his truth and to speak out against evil and against corruption. And if it bothers some people, that's okay. Have you ever been bothered in your life? I've been bothered. I got over it. We need the church to represent God's truth. And we in America, just like the church in Germany, are generally taking a pass on that. And I'm here to tell you that, when people say, how did that happen in Germany? How did it happen, the death camps? When we discovered the death camps in 1945, most people in the world said, I can't even take that in. That couldn't have happened. It couldn't happen in a civilized society, a Christian culture like Germany. That can't happen. It did happen. And now we know that it happened. But at the time, most people it took great pain to try to process the evilness of evil. And similarly, we in America kind of think like, well, we've gotten past evil. We don't believe in evil anymore. We don't have evil here. Maybe in other parts of the world or, in other seasons in history, but we don't have evil. Well, the Lord is giving us a little taste of evil. He's showing us you and your generation are no different than any generation in the past. And the satanic evil that existed in other generations and in other places, it exists among you as well. And he's allowing us to see it to wake us up. But I'm here to tell you that we're not there yet. If the church would rise up fearlessly and live out its faith, we would be in a new day in this country. But if we want to keep playing church, as I said, that's the devil's Christianity. You keep your church inside that building on Sunday morning, and when you leave, you bow to the secular authority of the state. That's not God's church. The Lord is calling his church to be his church. He's calling us to stand. He's calling us to speak against the madness. And I even think what are the most controversial things that you could think about? The people say, well, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. We should be talking about everything. We should have no fear to raise our voices, even just to ask questions, right? People say, well, you can't question the election. Excuse me. In the United States of America, I can question anything I want because I'll tell you what, I don't even need to be right. But you're telling me I can't question it? When you tell me I can't talk about something, I'm suspicious that you're hiding something. When you're telling me I have to buy your narrative of January 6th, I'm telling you, folks, you don't have to agree with me or with anybody, but when somebody tells you, you can't talk about that, you can't think that, you need to understand that is not, patriots have died. Patriots have died for our liberties, for our liberty to ask questions, to think for ourselves, to speak out on anything we want. And if somebody says, well, that's too controversial, there's nothing too controversial. You want to talk about vaccines? You want to talk about, when somebody tells you you can't talk about that, that's when you need to be suspicious that they're hiding something. Because in America, if you believe that there's this thing called truth, why would you be afraid to ask questions? Why would you be afraid to answer questions? So something has happened in America where we're going along, many of us, with the same narrative that the Germans went along with. They said, don't talk about that, you can get in trouble. I mean, if somebody says that to you in Germany in the 1930s, I can understand you saying, well, I don't want any trouble. But in the United States of America, where people have died for our liberties, where we govern ourselves, we are self-governing in this nation, you have rights enshrined in our founding documents that are sacred rights. And so when somebody tells you shut up, you tell them, no, excuse me, I think you need to shut up because people have died so that we can speak, and I will not be shut up. I don't need to go along with you. I don't need to agree with you. And by the way, you don't need to agree with me. We don't need to agree. But when you tell me I can't talk about something, I do not trust you. Because, as I've said, people have died so that we could have religious liberty, we could have freedom of speech. I mean, can you imagine, did you ever think you'd live, anybody who's as old as I am, you could never imagine that there would be against free speech. You'd say, that's the craziest thing. In America, we've always believed in free speech. We can speak freely. We don't have to be right. We just have the freedom to express our opinions, and people have died for that. But we've come to a curious time in history, and I really believe the Lord has allowed this, as I said, to wake up his church. Because just as Bonhoeffer was saying to the church in Germany in the 30s, the Lord has called you to stand against this. The church is the conscience of the state. It's not somebody else who's supposed to do it. You, the church, are called by God, saved by God for such a time as this. And it is time for you to speak. And those in Germany who said, well, I don't want any trouble, they got more trouble than they ever dreamt because they said, we don't want any trouble. If they'd been willing to risk a little trouble, they could have averted the nightmare that happened to them. And so it's easy for us to judge them. I'm saying that that's where we are in the American church today. There are tons and tons of churches meeting this morning. They're just having church. Happy church. And they're saying, well, we don't want to be divisive. We just want to preach the gospel. Well, folks, if that's the game you're playing, in 10 minutes you won't get to preach your little gospel. Because the state is not interested in you preaching the gospel. They'll pretend that if you just keep your mouth shut and preach your little gospel, we'll leave you alone. But they have no desire to leave you alone. They just want to keep you silent and inactive until they can crush your ability even to preach your dead little gospel that you think you're preaching so effectively. Now, that's what happens around the world. That's not just in the United States, but this is the last place on planet Earth that ought to be happening. And it can only happen with the complicity of the church. And so just as Bonhoeffer tried to say to the church in Germany, church, now is your time. Wake up. Live your faith. And they said, Romans 13, no, we don't want to do it. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. We now know they were not fine. We can now look back and go like, hey, how did that work out for you guys? Nightmare. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. We are there today in America. But I believe that all these terrible things, some of which I've mentioned, are happening to wake up the church today. To wake up God's people and to say that we have less of an excuse than the German church by far for our silence. Patriots have died in this country. In this country, we have religious liberty. Religious liberty means you get to live out your faith. Not you get to have your little private little faith that's meaningless. You get to live it out when you leave this building. You get to share your views. You get to live out your views and advocate your views in the political sphere. By the way, how do you think the civil rights movement happened? Christians advocated for God's view of the races in the civil rights movement. That came out of the churches. And it didn't stay in the churches. It became enshrined in law. And they didn't say, well, we don't want to be political. We think racist policies are fine. They said, no, God doesn't think racist policies are fine, so we're going to advocate because we believe what God says. And how many people said to the people in that era, why don't you keep your faith in your churches? They said, the only reason we have faith is to take it out of the churches and to take it into all the world and to take God's gospel and his truths into all the world. We are living in that season right now, folks. Right now. I like to quote that, in Germany in the 30s, just to give you a sense of how it happened, there were about 18,000 pastors in the Lutheran German church while the Nazis were rising. So think about this. There are 18,000 pastors. 3,000 of those pastors stood firmly against the Nazis, were willing to be sent to a concentration camp, to lose their position, whatever it was. 3,000. On the other hand, there were 3,000 that were totally pro-Nazi. And those 3,000 that were totally pro-Nazi would be kind of like the woke, crazy places that call themselves churches today. They've always existed. But here's the key. In the middle of the 3,000 crazy, woke pro-Nazis and the 3,000 heroes willing to stand up for what the Bible says, there were 12,000 who were deluded into thinking that they didn't need to choose. They were just going to stand in the middle and let the other guys fight it out. Those 12,000 who said, we're going to take a pass, we're just going to do church, we're just going to stick to our little theology, those 12,000 made hell on earth possible. Those 12,000 who said, we just want our safe Christianity, we don't want to get involved, we don't want to get political, we don't want to get controversial. Those 12,000 were the ones who made it possible for the Nazis to wipe out Christian faith in Germany, to murder millions of Jews and millions of non-Jews. It was the church in Germany that made that possible. And I wrote a letter to the American church because I'm convinced that the Lord has served this up for the American church today. And he said, okay, you have that story. Now what are you going to do? What are you doing now? It's very easy for us to say, oh, I would have spoken up for the Jews. I would have spoken up for the slaves if I was alive in the time of William Wilberforce or Abraham Lincoln. I would have spoken up. Are you speaking up now? Are you speaking up now on the controversial issues of today? Real easy to talk about slavery today. Everybody is on your side. Real easy for you to talk about that. Are you speaking out on all of these other issues? Are you daring to open your mouth? Are you daring to be political? Because one candidate says, I'm against abortion, and another candidate says, I'm pro-abortion. Are you willing to speak out on the issue of murdering the unborn? Or is that too controversial for you? God calls us to speak out for his purposes. And the enemy wants to shut you up. And because we're really nice Americans, we say, oh, okay, I don't want to divide anybody. Well, the Lord's not calling us to be nice. He's calling us to be faithful to him. And sometimes when you're faithful to him, some people say, well, you're not being nice. You're being political. We can't let those people discourage us. We're in the midst of tremendous spiritual warfare. And the Lord has appointed his church, his people, that is you and me, to be the answer. And I'm here to tell you, folks, if you will be bold in your faith and live out your faith, you have no idea what God can do through you. You have no idea. I'm here to encourage you that the slightest boldness on your part will encourage others to be bold, who will encourage others to be bold. And if we are all bold together, you will see a sea change in America. You want to see revival in America? Now, we know, apart from revival, none of this can happen. We know that. Jesus has to be in the midst of it. He's the one that's going to give us the power by his Holy Spirit to live out our faith. But he does expect us to live out our faith. He doesn't expect us to say, well, it's over. The nation's been judged. Because so many people killed in abortion, it's over. If God doesn't say it's over, it's not over. When God says it's over, it's over. If you have determined that it's over and you're going to sit on your hands, you're serving the devil. Now, I say that as bluntly as I can say it, because you don't get to decide when it's over. God gets to decide when it's over. And until the Lord says it's over, he calls you to fight. He calls you to pray. He calls you to go to war for righteousness. And we know that in every season, the Lord says to his church, I need you to stand for what is right and true. And if you don't think people in the past paid a price, you've seen the videos, okay, of black people being hosed down by cops. You've seen those videos. They paid a price. But today we have civil rights in America. Jim Crow laws have been abolished in America because somebody was willing to live out their faith and pay a price. And you can't outgive God. Whatever price you're willing to pay, he will give you 1,000-fold. We can't even imagine what the Lord has prepared for those that love him. But are we willing to pay a price? Or do we think, no, we're in a different era now. All the major problems have been solved, and we can just sit on our hands and have happy church. That's not what the Lord is saying. And the Lord is giving us a taste of these horrors to bless us, to wake us up in this generation so that we don't say, you know what, we missed it. Like the German church missed it, we missed it. Because if you think things went very wrong in Germany when the German church was silenced, you don't have any idea what is going to happen in the world when the American church is silent. We have been silent. I believe we're waking up. I believe the Lord called me specifically to write this book as one of the ways that he's helping to wake people up. And I take no credit for that, believe me, folks, because I want to tell you, there are so many that I am meeting, including your pastor, that I say, there are 7,000 that have not bowed the knee to Baal. Let me tell you, I am meeting the heroes in this country, and I want to encourage you that there are more out there that are living out their faith than you realize. So we're not there yet, but I want you to be encouraged that God is real. He is still a wonder-working God. He is doing miracles in our lives, for our families, in our communities, and he invites us, think of this, folks, he invites us to be a part of what he is doing in this generation. You don't want to miss that. You do not want to miss that. You don't want to look back and say, I missed it. I sat on my hands too long. I didn't get involved. I didn't do anything. The Lord created you for this. He created you for this. He's allowing these things to happen, and he created you in your mother's womb to be born for such a time as this, to live out your faith now. Now, he won't force you to live it out. He has made us in his image. We can choose freely. But to miss it, would be a nightmare. And I'm telling you that if the church will arise and be faithful to God in our actions, in what we say, if we will live fearlessly as we ought to do, if we actually have faith, we will see things in our generation that people have prayed about for centuries. Don't be discouraged. Be bold. Be strong, for the Lord your God is with you. God bless you.